Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, a podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Hello and welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. Today we're focusing on smartphone video marketing, and I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Daryl Cygler, the founder and managing director of Smartphone Video Marketing Group. Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, Daryl. How are you today?
Yeah, Jeff, great. Thank you for having me. Honored to be here. I've watched a few of your podcasts, and yeah, it's a privilege to be one of your guests. Happy to chat.
Great stuff. You're very welcome. And smartphone video marketing is something that I'm starting to get involved in as a business. I know it's quite a popular method of capturing content for businesses. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as we get into the discussion. So first off, this podcast goes out predominantly for the manufacturing community. So why should manufacturing businesses try some of their own smartphone video marketing?
Great question. I think manufacturers ultimately want to be able to showcase what they do. It's as simple as that. A lot of manufacturers and engineering companies, they go to exhibitions because they love that tangible experience of a face-to-face experience, being able to show what they do. For me, video is that next best thing. We're taking all those elements that you are doing behind your workshop door, behind your factory door, and we're giving it a life, a visual life. We're creating a visual conversation. Video enables you to be able to do that. And simply put, it is being able to showcase that through the medium of video to those prospects that need your service.
Brilliant. And bringing things to life. I think that's hopefully that'll be getting people's ears pricked up as to what they might be able to achieve through smartphone video marketing. So how did you get into this concept in the first place, Daryl?
Well, it was interesting. I know you talk about predominantly SMEs within the context of this podcast, and that's exactly where I was. I am a founder of a manufacturing and engineering company in Australia. We manufacture above ground fuel storage tanks. And as I said earlier, show, don't tell. I wanted to be able to show what our products did in what is the diverse situations and challenging conditions that exist within Australia. I mean, you can talk about it, but when people physically see it, they get that connection. They understand how it can work for them, and that was the real aspect I wanted to bring across. And when it comes to video marketing, I did what probably 95% of the other companies do. They just look for a video production company because that seems like the logical process. We did that. Long story short, I got a couple of videos produced. They were great. They served the purpose that I was looking for initially. A couple of things that jumped out to me after the process. One was the cost. It cost me a fair chunk of change, thousands, to produce 2 videos. And straight away I realized this was something I wasn't going to be able to do at scale. The second one was effectively the video production company left. And once they left, I thought, well, wait a minute, there's other aspects of my business that are going on. I want to be able to capture that content as and when it happens. And third thing was when they actually came in and set up on the day, it was quite disruptive for us. We had to sort of stop what we were doing in terms of product manufacturing lines and stuff like that. And so there were 3 things that really stood out for me. And with all that in mind, I thought, well, this is something we can't do at scale, primarily because of the budget initially, but those other things came to the fore as well. And then I happened to come across a term called mobile journalism, and it sort of really pricked my ears up. But what essentially it was journalists from massive news stations, the likes of the BBC, ITV in London, RTE, which is the Irish equivalent of the BBC over there. And mobile journalists were going out and creating video news stories with their mobile phones. And once I started to dig into this, I was totally taken back because video content produced on a phone, you just think it's quite amateurish, it's not professional, it's moves around a lot. but I saw the level of the video and the production that was going into these stories, which were featuring on primetime news, 1 o'clock on a Sunday. And for me, it totally reset what I thought was possible with these phones and being able to capture video content. And me with my marketing head on, straight away, this was the solution that I was looking for, where I had that challenge, those years before, in terms of what was making it difficult for me to be able to produce this video content for my company. So as an SME, this was the opportunity that opened up us being able to showcase our business with video.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. It's interesting to make that connection between what you're doing now for manufacturing companies and others, and the fact that you are within a manufacturing business yourself. So great. Well, why is it difficult to get people in front of the camera in the first place sometimes, Daryl? Because I've been there myself. I mean, usually when people know there's a corporate video shoot, or there's a marketing company coming in to do whatever they do, the extroverts will love it, but then the introverts within a business, they'll tend to sort of shy away. And I'm just thinking, because we've all got smartphones and most people have at some point taken a selfie or a bit of a video, is this actually going to encourage more people to get in front of a smartphone as part of a marketing or a piece of marketing content, because the actual device is something that they've got a close personal affinity with?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so there's two elements there that you've sort of brought up, and you're absolutely right. I mean, video does very much play to our insecurities. We tend to analyze ourselves, and I think I watch myself in video, I think, Jesus, there's some hairs out of place there, my fringe isn't really working, and so on and so forth. But honestly, one of the byproducts of being comfortable in front of the camera is you sort of let go of these insecurities, and there's a lot of things that evolves on a personal basis when you sort of become comfortable with video, and that's great. And these are benefits that a lot of people don't talk about, but equally, you can produce video without being in front of the camera. That's not a problem. People associate you have to be in front of the camera first and foremost. Hey, you don't. You can very much showcase a lot of what you do, your products, your processes, your people, by not actually being in front of that camera. And that's something we talk about a lot. And, to your other point around the device itself. Now, we have a lot of familiarity with our phones. We are comfortable with that as a device. Now, if you were to interview someone with a big journalistic traditional setup, big tripod, big camera, big sound boom, and you put that in front of an average Joe public, or a person that's not ever been in that experience, you're going to feel overwhelmed and totally intimidated, of course. But if you were to do the same interview with a smartphone on a tripod, because you want to be able to establish it in a professional way so you get really good footage as well, I can tell you now, honestly, they are going to be less intimidated. It makes for a more natural setting and a more natural response to questions when you ask. And that's the great thing about the phones, is it lowers people's defense mechanisms. So it makes things. I mean, there was actually a journalist that did a study in a train station in one of the Nordic countries, and they had two setups like I've just described, and they went off and they tried to get people to do interviews in the train station with a traditional big setup, as I said, and one with just a more little low-key smartphone on a tripod. And all the metrics came back saying more people stopped, more people wanted to give interviews, more people stopped, did not necessarily give an interview, but talked to them anyway with what was the smartphone setup first and foremost. So there's this level of familiarity which you can very much utilize, and that's the great thing about it.
Super. So what's involved at the start of the journey then, Daryl? I mean, what sort of equipment are we talking about, apart from the smartphone, which people will have already? What else is normally required to record some some decent videos within a business?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So as I've mentioned before, smartphones are great, but equally it's about getting the best out of them. So it comes down to a couple of elements. Number one, the smartphone, that's a given. Number two, we want to have stability in our shots. So I would recommend a tripod first and foremost. And then secondly, when you're moving around and you're actually getting active shots, still being able to hold that phone in the best way possible. So we also recommend a video rig. So tripod and video rig for stability. The second element is audio. Audio is very important. You know, we understand what it's like when you have bad audio, like a station that's out of tune. You just can't turn it off quick enough. So we start to lean on third-party audio devices, whether that's a lapel microphone for doing interview setups, or a sort of shotgun mic that sits on top of the video rig for live shooting. So that's two elements there. You've got the video, you've got stability, you've got audio, and then the third one is framework, understanding the type of shots that you need that will help you create that visual story in terms of the end product. So between those three elements, understand it right, and you will produce good quality video content all the time.
So there's a little bit of equipment, but there's also the technique. That I know there's some sort of fairly standard and simple techniques that you can use that you will train on your workshops and your courses. We'll talk about that in a second. But just for anybody listening that wants to just have a go and start making some basic video content with their smartphone, roughly what sort of money would get them up and running, bearing in mind that they've probably already got their phone? What would they need to sort of spend to get the basic kit, tripod, microphone and rig stabilizer?
You're probably looking not more than £200.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, that's great because the phone is very much there. And, some people have older phones and they think that very much, that limits their ability to be able to shoot good quality content. I mean, the phone, I'm actually using a smartphone here and now as my webcam, and it's an iPhone 11. I've produced really good content on my iPhone 11, so don't let that stop you in terms of a phone being maybe 1 or 2, 3 years old.
Okay.
But yeah, and again, it just depends how far you want to go. £200 will definitely cover you covering those items I mentioned in terms of tripod, video rig, lapel microphone and a shotgun microphone, and you're good to go.
Great, thank you for that. So in terms of something I talk about quite often on the podcast with various guests is how do we encourage more youngsters into manufacturing and engineering? So from the perspective of what you're doing with smartphone video marketing, I would have thought this process would in itself potentially draw more youngsters into industry, and that might not necessarily be straight onto the shop floor in the factory, but in a trainee marketing role for manufacturing. All youngsters seem to have smartphones at a very young age these days, and I guess most of them are better at figuring out what they do than some of us older folk, aren't they?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, they definitely adapt very fast with the technology, that's for sure, because they've just grown up with it. But by all means, you can very much use video as a vehicle to get so many different marketing messages out there. Sure, you can talk about your products, your processes, but equally you're talking about your people.
Yeah.
Now, a big element of that is the people within the business and what they're doing from a skills perspective, but also leveraging that from an employment point of view. Start creating content to attract that new generation that wants to come in, that you need to progress the business forward, and understand where these youngsters are. People talk about TikTok and the opportunities over there. By all means, if this is something that you want to develop in terms of trying to attract that next generation, understand the platforms and where your audience exists, and then create that type of content to suit that audience. A great example is most people, when they're looking for a new role or advertising a new role, they'll do a shout out on LinkedIn. They might do a bit of a CV upload, not a CV, a sort of job advertisement offer, Indeed, or they'll go to a executive search specialist like yourself, but that's more high end and very specialized. But equally, you could create a video showcasing the workplace. Look, this is where you're going to be working. This is the type of machinery you're going to be working with. This is the opportunity. So you're very much setting that scene on, this could be the new future. And I think that's really exciting and different to what other people are doing.
Yeah, I love that. So what can we call that? A promo for the next generation of engineers, get some promo videos done to use in the recruitment process for your, whether it's apprentices or just people coming in to take up some additional training.
I mean, you're exactly right. And if you were to have two businesses that just went down the traditional route of just putting an offer out, and then you had another one that's had the offer plus a little bit of video promotion, I would tend to say that I think the video promotion behind the scenes would get a lot more interaction as well,
and probably better conversion.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's say I'm running a manufacturing business. I've been around the plant taking loads of video to capture, the people, the processes, materials. How many different ways are there for me to showcase what we're doing in the factory? So you mentioned there's different platforms. I mean, there's also stuff, you could use video on sort of email marketing, LinkedIn posting. What does that sort of arena look like? What are the actual possibilities, Daryl?
Yeah, okay. I mean, you've alluded to what the possibilities are. What I will say in terms of what people tend to do is if they produce a video, it will ultimately maybe sit on their website, on a particular landing page, so that video reflects the product or service on that relevant page. They will then, as you say, they might utilize that with some additional additional email marketing. They may then also stick it on a YouTube channel. So it goes without saying that by all means you want to leverage it through your various channels where your audiences are. But what I see all too often is that process generally happens within, say, the first couple of weeks, month of actually just getting the video back. You're excited, this is new content, you're out there distributing it. Then after that, things tend to sort of quieten down. It'll probably just sit on a YouTube channel, it'll just sit on your website, and that's it. Gathering digital dust. That could be a bit harsh, but I mean that in the sense that you're not leveraging the most out of it. And lean video marketing is one of the principles we teach. It's video creation in the first instance, but then it's video marketing in the second instance. Hollywood budget studios, big budget Hollywood studios will spend 30 to 50% of their production costs on the marketing of the movie as well. So bear that in mind. When you are getting content created and you have a budget for it, allow budget to be able to promote that content as well. And I'm a big advocate of putting paid sponsorship behind that content, but you can also do that strategically, so people are able to see the video content at the right time in the right order as well, and I think that's invaluable. You're
very interesting. So I know you run a number of different sort of workshops or training courses for smartphone video marketing. I know that because I've recently sent Chris Beecham on the one-day workshop over to Leamington, and he came back full of enthusiasm and ideas of how to use more video within our business, Authentica Resourcing. And but what else do you do in terms of, that was the one-day workshop, which was a lot of the basics. But what else do you do in terms of specialist training for organizations, Daryl?
Great question. I mean, essentially, as I alluded to in the last question, we do two elements. We focus on video creation and video marketing. It's as simple as that. And primarily we train marketing teams within the manufacturing and engineering space, and we
Yep.
train them to be able to understand this process of video creation and video marketing in-house and on demand. Because what I noticed, from my own business, and this is from hands-on real-world experience, is you want to be able to understand strategically the video content that you want to create, but equally you want to be there when something happens and have that skill set to be able to whip out your phone, capture that moment with a bigger understanding. This is fantastic. I know exactly how I'm going to leverage this in terms of my marketing channels. So that's what we do. We train individuals, champions of the business, marketing teams in the first instance to be able to create video content with their phone. That starts with the one-day workshop that you talked about that Chris came on. Yep. We then have a follow-up process of doing another couple of weeks of going more into the specifics and advanced video creation and editing, and then we have a longer period of the video marketing. But essentially we can work with businesses for a 4-month period where we give you this skill set in-house, so you can really open up video as a marketing channel to be able to create more visual conversations, which ultimately leads to those inquiries coming through and onto more business.
Yeah, so it starts off with the getting the video actually created in the first place, and that's really where people need to start, isn't it? Is actually doing it rather than not doing any. But then you're also training people how to, I suppose, look out for what might be an opportunity where you can take some content that's going to have an impact. So it's the process, but then also the methodology of the marketing piece, which will get you to getting the most out of whatever it is you've shot in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said earlier, it's not just about, oh, okay, I've got a video and then just putting it on your web page or at YouTube. Yeah. It's setting up a system, a video-based sales and marketing system. So if a person comes into a particular page on your website that's talking about a particular product or service, you've created a video that's very specific to that, maybe multiple videos. You have a way of being able to deliver that video and videos, ultimately in order. We can set that up as well. So these people are seeing this content and, they're understanding what you do, how you do it. And ultimately, when it comes to them making a decision, they pretty much know what you do and you're front of mind. And that's invaluable. That really is invaluable in terms of they feel like they already know a lot about what you do, and they, to a certain extent, sell themselves on your service, which is great.
Yeah. Are there any sort of limitations to what could be achieved with using a smartphone for video marketing?
Yeah, people's imaginations, really.
Creativity.
Yeah, well, creativity, and there's some people that think, oh, there's no way, I don't want to do this, so it's just it's not going to work. I mean, granted, the devices have certain limitations around them because ultimately it is a small device and they pack a lot of technology in there, but it will never ultimately compete with a DSLR camera in certain circumstances. So you have to understand how to work to the camera's strengths.
Yes.
So that's all something we teach. But in terms of what you can potentially create from it, there's no limitations, I don't think. I mean, there's even been big budget films created on smartphones, iPhone 8s, Hollywood blockbusters, the lot. So, even these big Hollywood studios and directors are playing around with the phones. And from what I've read, they're generally impressed by what is available. And equally, these manufacturers, they're only going to improve the level of production that comes out of these phones. So it's only going to get easier for us.
Absolutely. So have you got any specific advice to any SME business who are considering the use of smartphone video marketing? How do they get started? What's the first step?
Okay, well, what I would say, I'll just take a step back and say this goes out to any SME businesses that are considering video production video marketing in the first instance. And what I would say to you is, please don't rule out smartphone video marketing or lean video marketing, and you don't necessarily need to go to a video production company. You will be blown away by the flexibility of that the phone offers in terms of always having a camera on you. Sure, there's a process that you need to learn and understand, but you know, these processes evolve. You're in manufacturing, you know, you understand the concept of evolution, of, you know, streamlining that process. But once you understand the concept of lean video marketing and you go through that journey, be it you, your marketing team, champions within that business, it will be invaluable for that business down the line. And dare say it'll probably reset the way you think about video marketing. So I would definitely explore it as an option.
Absolutely, give it a try. Okay, so I mean, you and I, as we said earlier, you and I have met a few times. It's normally at exhibitions and places like that, and that's where I originally got a feel for what you were doing with video and lean smartphone marketing and what was involved. I like the simplicity, and you know, it's almost like a straight out the box, quick setup, and away you go. That really appealed to me. I'm sure that probably would for, you know, for other manufacturers and SME businesses. So if anybody's interested in catching up with you in person out on the exhibition circuit this year, where are you going to be hanging out, Daryl?
There's a few coming up. Advanced Engineering, which is in November. Again, these are majority of them at the NEC Birmingham. I tend to sort of make the call on these when they pop into the fore, because a lot of these exhibition places tend to promote it closer to the time. So but by all means, you know, you can visit our website, smartphonevideo.marketing, in terms of getting a little bit more information, and happy to chat at any time. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I met you at I think what was Subcon last year, and yeah, as you said, it was very impromptu. We set up some informal interviews there on the Connex stand, which was great.
Yes,
and that's the beauty of it. You know, once you have the skill set, hey, anytime, any place, we've got the ability to draw on those moments that sort of showcase the value of what's possible. So yeah, explore it.
Great. Okay, well, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today, Daryl. Really interesting, particularly because I've got an interest in this for my own business, you know, so it's great to have a chat with you today. That kind of wraps up our discussion. I hope you've enjoyed it today. So thank you again to Daryl Cygler. Thanks everybody for listening, and look out for the next episode of Insights for Manufacturing. See you next time, and bye-bye.